Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Hello, friends. Welcome to a brand new show, Worldview Matters. We thank you for sharing and supporting the show. And we encourage you, if you're able to, make a donation on the website, worldviewmatters.tv. That helps, especially a brand new show, get the word out. Subscribe to our free email updates. I think they're once a week, maybe twice a week. And that's at worldviewmatters.tv. You can also download the Freedom Project app, and you can watch or listen that way as well. Very important topic today. We're going to be talking about some of the disturbing things that are going on in the public school system. The government runs it. We've said this for a long time. I've got an expert guest on the topic, author and conference speaker Linda Harvey, who founded Mission America in 1995. She is a Christian pro-family, or that is a Christian pro-family organization tracking current cultural issues, and the media ministry of Linda Harvey is an outgrowth of her faith and a successful career in marketing and public relations. It's missionamerica.com. A lot of great articles and resources on there on current social issues. She's got a weekly e-newsletter sent to a national audience and a radio show in Ohio on the Salem Network station in Columbus, WRFD. Linda Harvey, welcome to Worldview Matters.
Thank you, David. It's great to be with you today.
Yeah, good to see you. Well, let's start with your neck of the woods. We have a couple of guests from Ohio. In fact, I think another one from Columbus. What's happening there? You sent us a graphic on something. I think you've got a story or two you can tell us about as far as what's going on in the public schools or the courts there. And actually, yeah, they're what's coming up in November. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we have one of the most radical pro-abortion, abortion on demand through all 9 months of pregnancy ballot issues in November. And right. It's very similar. It's very similar to one that passed in Michigan, just north of us, this past last November. And so we've been putting out material, Ohio beat Michigan, because we need to defeat this. It's not simply abortion on demand. It would obliterate parental consent. It would obliterate any questions parents have about contraception. Even opens the door to underage minors being counseled in all of this and treated, even for gender issues, without parental consent. So it's the way it's phrased. They use the phrase in this, and this is Planned Parenthood and ACLU and all the usual suspects, but they use language similar to how they did in Michigan. They use the language of every individual deserves reproductive freedom, individual with no sex definition and no age definition. So this could create a precedent that is a nightmare.
Tell us about that. How does that happen? And I know Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer just passed something and they did some laws. Supposedly she wanted to protect children, she says, right? But what they're doing, Michigan leaders there, they're actually endorsing the sterilization of minors, and they're all for the trans movement, and they're all fully abortion on demand, but she wants to protect children. The hypocrisy is amazing. So what is the language there in Ohio that might confuse people, and is it similar to what was passed in Michigan?
Well, if you read it pretty closely, it should not confuse you because it says every individual deserves the rights to reproductive freedom, including but not limited to abortion, contraception, infertility, treatment, all sorts of pregnancy issues, and that the state shall not interfere. The state or any representative of shall not interfere, which means schools. So the pro-life movement is very coalesced around this. I think we're doing a great job. There's a group called Protect Women Ohio, and I'm part of that coalition, our group Mission America, and they're leading the campaign to oppose issue 1. And the bad news is we also have a legalize a recreational marijuana issue on the ballot as well. That's issue 2. So we have 2 no's that we're asking people to vote on. So we got a lot going on that will impact families and children in Ohio.
Wow. And that's weeks away. Really? It's coming up.
Well, early voting next week. It's next week. So
Next week. Oh, wow. Okay. So I do want to mention some good news, Linda, before we get into what you have on your website. To me, a very helpful resource. We've talked about this before, but not with this audience here at Worldview Matters, the school corruption and propaganda calendar. It's amazing what they are supporting openly in the public schools today. But there's a couple of these cases. A federal court ruled that Christian teachers can't be forced to lie to parents about kids' gender confusion. Now, this was a federal judge, I believe in Chino, California, the school districts out there. I believe you mentioned there may have been one in the Midwest as well. There are other cases like this, Linda. So this is good news. It's sad that it has come to this, where these cases have to go to the courts, where parental rights are not, we can't take them for granted anymore. And that's what's sad about this. So your thoughts on cases like this and any other ones that are similar that you can talk to us about?
Well, you have one in Wisconsin. I just read about yesterday. Is it Waukesha?
Yeah.
County Court just ruled in a case with Kettle Moraine School District that court ruled that the school is wrong to keep parents from knowing about name changes and pronoun use by their children at school without their knowledge. Yep. So here we go. So there's an Iowa court that also had a recent case that was similar to that. And the Sixth Circuit in which is Tennessee, Michigan, Kentucky, and Ohio just had a very good ruling on gender treatment bans for kids. So we're seeing some good stuff out there. Excuse me.
Yes, and we need more of it. And it's just sad, unfortunately, that we have to fight this battle in the courts, something that should be a given, something that, what would our great-grandparents think, or what would our grandparents think? They would go, wait a minute, the controversy or debate is about protecting children and, from lying, from doing these procedures. It's just amazing what the schools are pushing and some of them getting away with. That brings me to your calendar, Linda. Actually, one more thing. You sent a graphic of a picture of a library. I wanted to talk about that because libraries, that's kind of flown under the radar. Tell us about this right here.
This is a picture in an Ohio library someone sent me during Pride Month. It was a public library, but we have many other graphics over the years where we've seen school librarians during the May and June time period, and also right now, which is supposedly, quote unquote, LGBTQ History Month. So they will put out these library displays with books that have an LGBTQ theme, either in May and early June before school lets out, or in the fall. And also because of so-called Banned Books Week, which we're just wrapping up here, and the problem is that many of these homosexual and transgender themed books for middle and high schoolers have obscene material involved and pornographic passage one after another. I've never seen the kind of material that's out there now. It's beyond belief.
Yeah, and the agenda is relentless. They're accessing children at younger and younger ages. We've seen this coming. For you and I, we're going, hello, we've been trying to sound the alarm, wave the flag, and warning. We've been talking about this for a long time. We've written about it. Oh, by the way, I want to mention your book, Maybe He's Not Gay. Forgot to mention that. Mentioned that you were an author when I introduced you, Linda, but this is a great book, guys. I think you can look into. Maybe He's Not Gay. And gosh, it's like we can't even have that conversation. That free speech is being censored and suppressed today, that there might be a possibility that all these young people that are jumping on the LGBTQ bandwagon, a lot of them do it for attention. A lot of them are not really thinking they're gay or lesbian or trans. They're doing it for different reasons, but it's like we're the enemy for raising the question, well, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not transgender. Maybe they're not gay. Your thoughts on that, and tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, it says another view on homosexuality, and then I have a chapter in there on maybe he's not a girl. So I updated it for the gender confusion matter. But the whole premise is everything is built on one big assumption, that some people are born this way. And even within the Christian church, we have a big controversy recently over Andy Stanley's church in Atlanta. And he typifies a move among even evangelicals to go toward, accepting the sexual orientation and the gender identity. And underlying that is some belief that people are born that way. That is unbiblical. It's apostasy, total apostasy. And Christians should stand on this, even if they see, policy after policy that makes that assumption. There is no evidence anyone is born homosexual. And I'll say it here again for anybody who's interested. I've never had anyone take me up on this, but I'll give $10,000 to anybody who can find me a gay gene. And I feel very comfortable that our bank account will be secure because it doesn't exist.
That's right. So, I think science even affirms that. I mean, let alone the Bible. For us as Christians, the Bible is enough. God's the creator and designer of every human being, male or female. Science backs that up. But isn't it amazing, Linda, today, even biology and science are under attack when it comes to some of the basics. We only have a minute or two here before we need to take a very quick break. But we are at a place where they say Pride Month is just in June, and you and I can laugh and laugh and laugh. But it's really sad. It's queer all year. Friends out there watching, you've seen the TV commercials. You've seen what's on primetime. You've seen the shows, all the gay and lesbian characters now in almost every show. You've seen the magazine racks at the grocery store. You've seen the push on social media. It's not just Pride Month. Linda, according to your calendar, this is, as you mentioned, LGBTQ History Month. You go, wait a minute, now they've got their own month as well? Now this is what the public schools are celebrating. Your thoughts before we take a break?
Yeah, it's an excuse to push the LGBTQ agenda, to legitimize it, to normalize all these behaviors, and to put up displays everywhere, and then invent these past histories for, famous figures like Tchaikovsky, Abraham Lincoln, and people like that. One legislator in North Dakota just is proposing, I just read this, that Sodom and Gomorrah be included in LGBTQ History Month, which would be amazing. That's where it starts.
That's funny. I did a sermon on that at a conference last month, and I looked into the actual world history, real actual history of Sodom and Gomorrah, that the surrounding cities there are called cities of the plain. And what modern day scientists think happened was a meteor came down and affected that area. But anyway, that's in Genesis, friends. We're with Linda Harvey, Mission America. We will be right back on Worldview Matters.
Today's show is brought to you by Harbinger's Daily, world news biblically understood. Stay informed at harbingersdaily.com.
We're back with Linda Harvey, Mission America. Before we get to more of her calendar, which is very helpful on missionamerica.com, it's called the School Corruption and Propaganda Calendar. We're just going to go through some of the events that are documented on this unfortunate timeline of what they celebrate, and it's getting longer and longer and longer. Before we get back to that, Family Research Council, FRC.org, they've got 11 resources for parents to fight transgender ideology and policy in public schools. You can look it up. You can research that at frc.org. Family Research Council, again, 11 resources for parents to fight transgender ideology. We might get to that at the end of the time, but it's going by very fast with Linda, as I knew it would. So Linda Harvey, it's LGBTQ History Month, according to the public schools and the Gay Mafia and the Alphabet Soup Club. But I just saw this hot off the press article. Los Angeles School District is celebrating LGBTQ's National Coming Out Day. It's not just a day, all week long. So they're taking what used to be a day, making it all week. And for Pride Month, it used to be a month, and now it's all year that we're celebrating. We're finding a way to put this in the public eye. It's bombarding us to the point of, I think, oversaturation. What are your thoughts on this? Have they overplayed their hand? I mean, how much more can they push on the public?
Well, I was very encouraged to see about 2 or 3 weeks ago, right, the beginning of school, that a number of students in a Pennsylvania school district, you probably saw this,
yes,
over 100 walked out of the school over their transgender policies. Again, this is a conservative reaction, and I'm just cheering because the kids themselves are going to react if the parents don't, and parents are. We're seeing so much more activity and involvement by parents than ever before, but the kids are going to react. And so I think they are overplaying their hand. People know it's all phony. It's a big agenda. It's not about love and rainbows. It's about depravity and grave sin that no one needs to stay in. People can change. Yes. And so we need to keep emphasizing that.
Can we say grooming?
We can. That is what it is. And, a lot of these people that are pushing this in schools, and by the way, there are still many wonderful and very concerned and stressed out teachers trying to, wade through these waters and do what they can with all this around them. But we do have a lot of activist administrators and teachers, and some of them are not specifically groomers. They're just going along to get along because this is what the big folks, the NEA, the teachers unions, the American Federation of Teachers are pushing. And so if they want to be promoted, you just have to go along with this. So some of it is not deliberate, and we just have to hold them to the fire. And we need to elect conservative school board candidates everywhere we can, too.
Yes, it starts local. Thank you for bringing that up. Very important point. Local level. I mean, the federal, that's gone, friends. I'm sorry. We've seen story after story about what the Biden administration is pushing and the NEA. But, oh, by the way, friend, if you haven't seen a speech from Becky Pringle or Randy Weingarten, just go listen to some of their words. Look at how they are rah-rah for this agenda. They are absolutely open and blatant and boldly standing for perversity. And Linda, it's no surprise. Parents need to be more aware of that. But let's go back to what's happening in the schools. They're celebrating LGBTQ History Month, Coming Out Day, which technically was supposed to be just October 11, but it's now a whole week. But what is GLSEN? How are they behind all this and the Human Rights Campaign? But GLSEN pushes the majority of this, correct?
Yes, GLSEN is the sort of the ground zero of homosexual and transgender advocacy in schools. They started in the late 80s and started pushing these gay straight alliance clubs in Massachusetts high schools, and then they joined up with the GSA network, and they're all kind of, I don't think they're specifically officially affiliated, but the GSA network is all about the clubs as well. They're based on the West Coast. But GLSEN has been pushing curricula, advocacy, lobbying, and these homosexual clubs in middle and high school. And there are many now there's some in the elementary schools as well. So they're urging kids to proudly identify as gay as early as late elementary school now.
Yep.
And the implication is that people are born this way, and it's like race. So what you see in and among all of this is this solidarity movement, okay? Because the racial Black Lives Matter race con job is basically what I call it.
Yep.
People making money and reputations off of dividing us in ways that we don't need to be divided. They're joining with the LGBT folks and assuming all this is, and if you're not in favor of, for instance, a boy changing into a girl, you're a racist. You're not just transphobic, you're a racist. And so there's nonsensical, irrational thinking going on too, and being presented to our kids as such.
So let's get back to some of these events that you've got listed on this propaganda calendar, school corruption calendar. And friends, I printed this out from Linda's website. It's 4 pages. So we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit. Linda, Spirit Day is on here. It's supposed to be October 19. And then International Pronouns Day, October 18. I mean, International Pronouns Day. This is not going to stop. Spirit Day, what is that about?
Yeah, Spirit Day is people are to wear purple. It just highlights students who identify as homosexual or gender deviant, and it's just one more day. This is a different organization, GLAD, pushing this. So what you got is a lot of different advocacy groups getting in the door where they can. So this is just another one.
Can we parenthetically insert Demonic Spirit Day? Demonic.
Absolutely. It's all through here, yes.
So what are your thoughts? I see this International Pronouns Day, October 18th. What are your thoughts on how they have changed the language, and now it's almost demanded of people to abide by this pronoun policy now? There was no public debate on this. There was no federal legislation or state legislation passed. All of a sudden, we're supposed to, say whatever pronoun someone demands of us. Right here in Wisconsin, Linda Harvey, 4,000 population, Kiel, Wisconsin, there were 3 8th grade boys that got suspended because they didn't bow down to the pronouns and repeat the pronouns of a classmate who said, you need to use my pronouns. This is not just in pockets like LA or Columbus, Ohio, or Atlanta, or DC, San Francisco. This is nationwide. How did we get here with the pronouns, and how can parents respond when their kids are in classes and feel pressured to lie?
Yeah, we have a couple of articles on our website. One about how you can resist the pronoun police, and we predicted this last year, and boom, there it was. I mean, it's amazing how they signal exactly what they're going to do. And the big thing that where this is going to come through and be required, and it was used in that Wisconsin, the 3 middle school boys case, which was thrown out, by the way, because parents, I believe it was thrown out, parents complained, but they're using Title IX, which is the federal law passed in 1972 to ensure a non-discrimination on the basis of sex, basically to make sure that women had sports and educational opportunities in any federally funded K through 12 or higher education. So what they're trying to do, the Biden administration, and Obama tried this too, is to change that on the basis of sex phrase to include sexual orientation and gender identity. They're going to mandate pronouns. They're going to mandate all gender restrooms. They're going to mandate boys and girls sports teams using Title IX. The good news is that when they came out with this proposal from the Department of Education, there were so many complaints last year that they're slowing this down. It's an election issue now. They may put it off until after the election, but we got to hold them to the fire, because this will tyrannize schools.
Yep. So let's move on to Solidarity Week. This is coming up in early November, sponsored by Glisten. During this week, your child in public schools will be urged to become an ally, because it was formerly Ally Week, of students or teachers who are LGBTQ. What else can you tell us about Solidarity Week, Linda?
Right. It's what we were just talking about with joining hands with the all of the folks, including the racially motivated groups, all the social justice, people of color, they call them sexual minorities, but also to weave in all the straight kids. They want to make this movement big, and say, come alongside me. You're my buddy. If you really are a compassionate person and believe in social justice and inclusivity and diversity, you will support all of these sexually deviant behaviors. And our kids have lost any version of the truth being presented to them with these agendas.
Okay, in November, Transgender Awareness Week. And by the way, Solidarity, that's just not just a week. They push this all year round. Transgender Awareness Week, as if people are not aware of the transgender movement. And then there's Transgender Day of Remembrance. Those are both in November. Let's go to January, and stop me if you want to interject. No Name Calling Week is the middle of January. Another event to normalize homosexuality. And then February, this doesn't sound like a bad thing, Linda, National Reading Day. Why is that a bad thing? That's February 16th.
It started out, I don't know if people will remember, many will, Jazz Jennings, this young man who was first highlighted by, I think, Barbara Walters on a TV show when he was 6 years old, changing into a girl, supposedly. Well, it was built around the publicity after he slash she, but he started a TV show, like there was a show that followed him on television.
Reality show, yeah.
Reality show. And then he was, they were highlighting him. He was the focal point of this Jazz and Friends National Day of Reading. They've taken him out because he's having a lot of problems. And so they're now just keeping the Day of Reading and highlighting the Welcoming Schools, which is a pro-transgender elementary school program by the Human Rights Campaign. But poor Jazz Jennings could use some prayer.
Yes, pray for him. Unbelievable what his parents have done and allowed. But anyway, that's for another time. Transgender Day of Visibility. We're talking about March now in the school year. Day of Silence is in April. International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. That's in May. Harvey Milk Day is on the calendar. And of course, LGBTQ Pride Month, which is now queer all year. It's Pride all year. Are there any one of these things, Linda? Actually, you know what? We're so running out of time. I want to go back to the top of your page there at missionamerica.com on the school corruption and propaganda calendar. Simple question: what can parents do? What can you do? The 4 items there. Talk about the 4 items. Remove your children. Teach them at home or in Christian schools. Become acquainted with the messages and the deception, the propaganda, and share a little bit more about what can people do about this.
Right. The thing you need to do is if you have children in the public schools, you cannot just let this go. You've got to be learning about what they're going to hear and then be ahead of the game. We have material on here and articles about the biblical worldview and other things you can catch up on. You can also go to your school and try to demand equal time. I mean, if they're going to be pushing this, it's really a civil rights discrimination issue about freedom of religion. Ask that you can, somebody can come in and speak to a class or make a presentation, and then submit an opt-out form to get your kids out of all these sexuality, sexual orientation, gender identity lessons, and make sure that you opt them out of all the counseling and therapy going under social emotional learning, because that sneaks that into lessons as well.
Thank you, Linda. I told you it would go by fast today. Anything else you want to squeeze in? Any event you have coming up or anything else you want to mention before we let you go?
I think the most important thing people can do is to commit to taking ownership of your child's education. And if that means you can pull them out of school, you will never regret it, a public school. But if you're in there, you can make a difference and you have to be on top of it. But make sure we do that and pray constantly and stay up on top of what's going on.
Yes, friends, speak up and stand for the truth. Thank you, Linda Harvey, Mission America. We'll do this again, God willing. See you next time, Linda. God bless you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, tomorrow, Pastor Carl Gallups. He's in Florida, Baptist preacher, pastor, and has written a lot of books. We'll talk to him about some recent events and a pastor's perspective on what's going on with our government and some of the power grabs and some of the people on the left that seem to be above the law in our country. We'll talk about that. That's with Carl Gallups tomorrow. Thanks again for sharing the show. God bless you, and as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.